The Oklahoma sun had no mercy that July. Heat waves shimmered like oil slicks across the gravel driveway, and the parched grass crackled underfoot with every step. It had been 6 weeks without meaningful rain, and every creature on the land, two-legged or four, was suffering for it. Cattle pressed themselves into narrow stripes of shade cast by the barn. Chickens scratched half-heartedly in the dust, panting with beaks open. Inside the old farmhouse, Travis Callahan wiped a film of sweat from his brow. The ceiling fan spun overhead, doing little more than pushing hot air around the kitchen. He glanced at the thermometer nailed to the porch post, 108 degrees in the shade. His wife Jolene stood near the sink, filling a battered steel bucket with cool water from the well pump. "We've got to get the animals under the shade before noon hits," she said, her voice hoarse from the dry air. Travis nodded. "I'll bring the colts into the barn. You water the garden and see if we've got more tarps in the shed." Their son Caleb, all of 12 and built tough like his old man, was already outside leading Biscuit, their miniature horse, back toward the pasture. Biscuit's white coat was streaked with sweat and dirt, and he limped slightly, a thorn from earlier still tender in his hoof. The barn was their sanctuary in weather like this. It was old but solid, with thick wooden beams and plenty of cool shadow inside. But when Travis reached for the gate to let the livestock in, his stomach dropped. There, parked directly in front of the wide double doors, was a gleaming white Porsche Cayenne, its front wheels angled like a defiant snarl. The sun bounced off its chrome, blinding him for a second. Travis clenched his jaw. He didn't have to look far to know who it belonged to: Karen Malone, the self-appointed president of the Glenwood Ridge Civic Preservation Committee, a glorified HOA with no real legal standing on their rural, unincorporated land. She had moved in 6 months ago from Dallas, all big talk about property values, curated curb appeal, and neighborhood harmony. Travis hadn't thought much of her until she started showing up with surveys and printed bylaws she claimed applied to everyone within 5 miles of the ridge. The Porsche was spotless despite the dust, not a single fleck of mud on the wheels. She must have just washed it. Travis looked around. There, off to the right, under the shade of one of his cottonwoods, stood Karen in a wide-brimmed hat and spotless beige linen, fanning herself lazily with what looked like a laminated HOA. "Rulebook, you can't park there," he called out, his voice sharp. Karen turned, unbothered. "Oh, Travis, I just needed a little shade while I go over these new community guidelines. You really should think about replacing that barn. It's an eyesore. Brings everyone's property values down." His fists clenched, but he kept his voice steady. "Karen, I've got livestock overheating in this sun. You're blocking my access." She waved him off with a patronizing laugh. "You people are always so dramatic. If it's so urgent, go around. Or better yet, consider downsizing your zoo. This isn't a petting farm." Behind him he could hear Biscuit whinny, followed by Caleb's voice. "Dad, he's wobbling again. I think he's gonna collapse." Travis took a step forward, heat rising in more ways than one. "Move your damn car." But Karen only smiled and sipped from her stainless steel tumbler. "Why don't you ask nicely?" Travis turned away before he did something he'd regret. He rushed back to Caleb, who was crouched beside Biscuit in the dry grass. The little horse had gone down on his side, ribs rising and falling fast, eyes glassy with panic. "He's burning up, Dad. We need to get him in the barn." "Now." Travis knelt, checking Biscuit's pulse and pressing a hand against his flank. His skin was hot, too hot. "We have to cool him down." Together, they began hauling buckets of water from the pump, splashing them across Biscuit's body. Jolene ran out with a wet towel and draped it over his neck, murmuring soft reassurances. But without shade, the water evaporated almost instantly. The sun beat down like a hammer, and Biscuit's breathing grew shallow. From across the driveway, Karen shouted, "If that animal dies on your lawn, Don't expect me to help clean it up. That's a biohazard. Travis stood, spinning to face her. He's not dead, and if he dies, that's on you. Karen shrugged and pulled out her phone, pretending to check something. Animal control would have been here by now if you'd bothered to file permits for livestock. Just saying. Jolene glared at her. What is wrong with you? Karen didn't answer. She slipped into her car, turned up the AC and closed the windows, leaving the engine idling while the Porsche continued to block the barn doors. Inside, Travis's blood pounded louder than the cicadas. He walked toward his truck. Caleb called out, "What are you doing?" "Getting the tow chain." Travis was no hothead by nature, but there was a line, and Karen had crossed it like she owned the land. He yanked open the truck bed and pulled out a rusted but solid chain, looping it around his shoulder as he approached the Porsche. He could see her inside, lipstick freshly applied, still scrolling through her phone. He tapped on the window. "Karen, move it, or I'm towing it." She rolled down the window just enough to let out a puff of chilled air. "Touch this vehicle, and I'll sue." Travis leaned in. "You're going to sue me for saving my dying horse during a 108-degree heat wave? You're trespassing and interfering with farm operations. I've got witnesses and video from the barn camera. So you've got 3 seconds. Karen didn't blink. "Go ahead. Let's see what the sheriff has to say about reckless endangerment." "When you scratch this paint." Travis backed away and opened his phone. He called the sheriff's office, gave a brief rundown of the situation and hung up. "They'll be here in 20, he muttered. In the meantime, he began hooking the chain to the Porsche's rear axle. Jolene ran up, panicked. "You sure about this?" "Let's see how serious she is." Karen jumped out of the car. "This is harassment. You're insane." Travis didn't stop. He climbed into his truck, started the engine, and slowly began to back up, tension in the chain drawing taut like a bowstring. That's when Karen screamed. The sound of gravel crunching preceded the sheriff's cruiser turning onto the drive, lights on but siren silent. Deputy Carla Morales stepped out, tall and cool, in mirrored sunglasses despite the heat. She had known Travis since he was a teenager working cattle with his late father. She also knew Karen, mostly from nuisance calls about fence lines and unauthorized porch paint colors. "Travis," she said calmly, eyeing the truck and the chain. "You want to explain before I have to write something up?" Karen rushed forward. "He tried to tow my Porsche, my luxury vehicle. He threatened me and now he's destroying my property." Deputy Morales raised a hand. "Ma'am, step back." She walked to Travis. "What happened?" Travis pointed at Biscuit, still lying in the dirt with Caleb and Jolene tending to him. "My horse is dying. She blocked the barn, refused to move. Been out here nearly an hour now. I called you because I wasn't going to let it go further, but I couldn't wait much longer either." Morales looked from him to the sweat-covered boy, to the limp horse. Her jaw set. "I've seen enough." She turned to Karen. "You're parked illegally on private land. That barn's been here 30 years. You had no right to obstruct access during a heat emergency." Karen sputtered. "But he doesn't have zoning." "Zoning has nothing to do with life and death. You're being cited for obstruction and endangerment of livestock. I suggest you move your car before we impound it." Karen's face paled. You can't do that." Morales radioed for a flatbed just in case. Karen yanked her keys from her purse and stomped toward the Porsche, throwing a final glare at Travis. "This isn't over." Travis didn't respond. He was already running back to Biscuit, who stirred, just slightly as more water was poured over him. The barn doors swung open at last, and as the shadows welcomed the struggling horse inside, Travis murmured to no one in particular, "It just might be." The barn was cool, dim, and quiet, a sanctuary compared to the searing heat outside. Travis, Jolene, and Caleb laid Biscuit down on a thick bed of straw just beneath the overhead fan. Travis soaked a burlap sack in water and placed it gently across Biscuit's neck, while Jolene held his head steady. Caleb knelt by the little horse's side, whispering encouragement like a prayer. "Come on, buddy. Stay with us. Just a little longer," the boy murmured. Biscuit's breathing was still shallow but less frantic than before. His eyes fluttered open for a few seconds and closed again. His muzzle twitched when Travis brought a water-soaked sponge near it, but he was too weak to drink on his own. "I've called Dr. Edgerton," Jolene said quietly. "He's on his way. Said the heat's got a dozen other calls today, but he'll get here." Travis nodded, hand on the little horse's side. "We got him in just in time. A few more minutes out there." He didn't finish the sentence. Caleb's lower lip quivered. "If he dies, it's her fault. We should have pulled her stupid car with the truck." Travis looked at his son and saw something hard in the boy's eyes. Anger, resentment, a kind of steel he hadn't seen before. "I know," he said, "but the sheriff saw it all. Now she's got the law on her back." "But that won't bring back what she took from us," Caleb said, his voice small. They all sat in silence, the hum of the fan and Biscuit's faint breathing the only sounds. In the barn. The next morning brought no relief from the heat, just more tension. Travis found a sealed envelope nailed to his gatepost, thick legal paper inside, stamped with the red seal of Glenwood Ridge's Civic Compliance Committee. "Karen's doing." He read aloud, "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Callahan, you are hereby issued a formal violation notice for acts of aggression, destruction of potential community assets, and unauthorized maintenance operations within the visual range of community view. Per Section 4.3 of Glenwood Ridge's Community Guidelines, you are subject to fines totaling $2,800. Failure to comply may result in liens on your property." Travis stared at the paper, jaw slack. "She's calling the barn a visual violation. Now?" Jolene asked, incredulous. "And claiming Biscuit is a hazard? What the hell is wrong with her?" Travis handed her the letter. "This is her way of fighting back. Paperwork and lawsuits instead of decency." Caleb was at the window watching the gravel road. "She's out there again, taking pictures." Sure enough, Karen stood at the end of the fence line, sunglasses on, pointing her phone at their barn, the water troughs, even the chicken coop. She carried a clipboard in one hand, and next to her stood a man in a golf shirt, tall, thin, smirking. "She's, got back up now?" Jolene said. Travis narrowed his eyes. "Probably some HOA lawyer she hired off the internet." That night, Karen posted on the community message board online, writing, "Certain residents continue to endanger the aesthetic, harmony of Glenwood Ridge with livestock, outdated structures, and violent behavior. We are taking all appropriate actions to restore order and dignity." The neighbors started whispering. By late afternoon, a dust-covered pickup rolled into the yard, and out stepped Dr. Edgerton, old, sunburnt, and sharp as a scalpel. He moved quickly into the barn, examined Biscuit, and listened to Travis recount the ordeal. "Damn lucky you got him in," the vet muttered. "Miniatures dehydrate faster than full-sized horses. One more hour and you'd be burying him." Caleb stiffened. Jolene rubbed his back. "Can you save him?" Travis asked. The vet nodded. "We'll hook up fluids. Electrolyte mix, sedative, to keep him from seizing. But he's not out of the woods yet. This heat's brutal on his kidneys." He worked for over an hour, carefully inserting IVs and administering injections. When he finally stood up and peeled off his gloves, he was, blunt. "He's stable for now. But that animal shouldn't have been out in the sun that long. And he damn sure shouldn't have been blocked from shelter." "Tell that to Karen Malone," Jolene muttered. Dr. Edgerton raised an eyebrow. "You talking about the Dallas transplant? The one who tried to shut down that 4-H fundraiser last month because of goat smell?" Travis smirked. "That's the one." The vet shook his head. "People like that don't understand land. They understand control. Keep everything documented. Every picture, every temp reading. If this goes to court, you'll need proof." Travis nodded. "We've got barn cam footage, time-stamped. Good. Because the kind of people who care more about Porsche paint jobs than living creatures? They'll lie with a smile. 3 days later, the worst happened. Travis had just finished checking Biscuit's IV when he heard gravel crunching again. He stepped outside and saw Karen's Porsche parked beside a newer black SUV. A man in khakis and a Glenwood Ridge badge clipped to his belt stepped out with her. Karen marched up like she owned the place. "Mr. Callahan," she began, voice syrupy, sweet. "This is Code Compliance Officer Brent Wilcox. We're here for an inspection." Travis blinked. "Inspection? Of what?" Wilcox stepped forward, clipboard in hand. "We've had a formal complaint about animal mistreatment, illegal structures, and unpermitted land usage. You're required to allow inspection under the Glenwood Ridge protective bylaws." Jolene joined him on the porch. "We never signed anything with Glenwood Ridge," Karen huffed. "It's implied jurisdiction. This entire region falls within the voluntary cooperative. Refusal to comply means forfeiture of rights under the land usage agreement." Travis crossed his arms. "Voluntary means we opt in. We didn't." Wilcox hesitated. "We can still take visual surveys from the road, and if there's a public safety issue—" "There isn't," Travis snapped. "And unless you've got a warrant, you're not stepping past my fence." Karen smirked. "You think this Scarecrow Farm of yours is above the law? This neighborhood is evolving, Travis. Either catch up or be removed." She turned and snapped pictures of the barn, the fencing, even the water tank near the tool shed. Wilcox followed reluctantly, glancing around but saying little. Travis stepped forward and lowered his voice. "Come back with a court order or don't come back at all." Karen glared but said nothing. She got into her car. Wilcox gave a weak shrug and followed. As they drove away, Caleb whispered, "What's she gonna do now?" Travis's voice was grim. "Whatever it takes to win." The next week was a storm without rain. Word of Karen's actions spread through Glenwood Ridge faster than a prairie fire. Some neighbors rallied behind her, especially the newer arrivals with freshly painted homes and turf lawns. Others, particularly the farmers and longtime residents, came to check on Travis and Jolene, dropping off feed and cold water, offering to help repair the fence where Karen had trampled it weeks ago with her garden club truck. One afternoon, an old-timer named Hank showed up with a thermos and a six-pack. "Mind if I sit a spell?" he asked. Travis nodded. "Always welcome." Hank looked out at the fields. "You know, she tried to fine me last year for hanging laundry outside. Said it was unsightly. I told her if she touched my underwear, I'd call my lawyer." They laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. "She doesn't understand this place," Hank continued. "She wants a country club, not a community." Other neighbors began visiting. A retired teacher brought cold sandwiches and offered to testify in court. A single mother down the road, whose goat Karen had once tried to have removed for smell, pollution, sent a handwritten letter of support. But the battle lines were drawn. Some neighbors pulled their trucks further down the road to avoid the Callahans, afraid of getting involved. One posted a sign reading, "Compliance is community." Another backed Karen's campaign online, claiming Travis was a dangerous radical who threatened a woman's life over a car. Travis read the post. "They weren't here. They didn't see Biscuit dying in the sun." Jolene put a hand on his shoulder. "Let them talk. We've got truth on our side." "But is that enough anymore?" he whispered. A week after the standoff with the code enforcer, the heat finally broke, but a new storm was forming. Caleb was walking in from the barn with Jolene when a certified letter arrived via courier. The man in the brown uniform looked uncomfortable, handing it over. "Sorry, Mr. Callahan, it's official." Travis ripped open the envelope and scanned the header. Notice of Civil Action, Glenwood Ridge. Civic Council versus Travis and Jolene Callahan. The document was stamped with the seal of the county court and full of dense legal jargon. The words "nuisance to the community" willful noncompliance, and threatening behavior toward officers of the council jumped off the page. Jolene's face paled. "They're suing us? Over biscuit?" Travis clenched the paper, so hard it crumpled in his fist. "No, not just over biscuit. Over the barn, over the fencing, over us daring to live here without bending to Karen's Fantasyland rules." He walked out to the porch, staring toward the road that led to Karen's gated driveway. "She's not just trying to punish us, she's trying to make us disappear." Later that evening, Travis sat at the dining table sorting through old documents. He pulled out the original land deed, tax receipts, county zoning laws, and proof that their property predated Glenwood Ridge by at least 40 years. "They have no jurisdiction," he muttered. "We're county land, not under their HOA. This whole case is theater." "But if it goes to court," Jolene asked, "won't we have to defend ourselves anyway?" Travis nodded grimly. "And if we lose, they can lien the property. Maybe even force us out." Caleb, who had been silent, spoke from the doorway. "Are we going to lose the farm?" "No," Travis said. "Not if I can help it. But we're going to war now." The barn's new security camera had helped them document some of Karen's antics, but it was Caleb's old phone that captured what turned the tide. Late one afternoon, Caleb was riding his bike along the gravel road when he saw Karen arguing with another neighbor, Ms. Templeton, an elderly widow who owned 3 goats and a pair of peacocks that Karen had long despised. "You people think this is the Wild West," Karen snapped, her arms folded tight. "I moved here for serenity, not some rundown animal sanctuary," Ms. Templeton calmly replied. "Then maybe you should have moved into a gated condo in Dallas." Caleb ducked behind a hedge and quietly hit record on his phone. Karen's voice was clear and venomous. "You know what I did to the Callahans? Parked my Porsche right in front of their barn during the heat wave. That stupid little horse nearly croaked. Maybe next time they'll learn." Caleb's eyes widened. He stayed still as Karen ranted on about property values and scaring away modern buyers, never realizing she was being recorded. That night, he showed the video to his parents. Travis watched it in silence, then looked up, jaw tight. "That's intent. That's cruelty. That's evidence." Jolene grabbed a flash drive. "We're getting copies made, emailing it to every news outlet in the county. And our lawyer," Travis added. "She's going to wish she'd never opened her mouth." Caleb smiled, proud but somber. "I knew she was mean, but that was just evil." The video leaked online the next morning. Travis hadn't even sent it to the papers yet. One of Caleb's friends had posted it on social media, with the caption, "This is how Glenwood Ridge treats animals and farmers." By noon, it had been shared over 50,000 times. Local radio stations began discussing it. The town's Facebook group lit up with outrage. A local journalist, Leah Duran from the Bastrop County Ledger, reached out directly to Travis. "I want to come out, do an interview, on your porch, just you and your son," she said. "People need to see who's really behind that fence of hers." Leah arrived with a camera crew the next day. The story aired that night under the headline, "Miniature: Horse Nearly Dies After HOA Precedent Blocks Barn in Heatwave." The footage showed Biscuit lying weakly in the straw, Caleb beside him, and Karen's Porsche wedged in the gate. The interview was raw and real. "She left him to die," Caleb said softly into the camera. "All because she doesn't like animals, or people who live different than her." Karen, predictably, issued a press statement calling the video misleading and part of a smear campaign against a respected community figure. But the damage was done. The next day, someone painted the words "Free Biscuit" in bold red across the sidewalk outside Karen's house. That weekend, protesters showed up at the Glenwood Ridge Welcome Center holding handmade signs. "Justice for Biscuit. Country before code. Karen can't block compassion." For the first time, Karen Malone was on the defensive. The pressure was too much. Karen's carefully curated empire began to crumble. At the next HOA meeting, normally a well-choreographed affair full of yes men and perfumed coffee, 3 board members announced their resignation. "I didn't sign up for animal cruelty," one of them told the press. "She's out of control." Vendors began pulling out of Glenwood Ridge's upcoming Spring Home Showcase. A real estate agency canceled their partnership, citing reputation risk. The gardening club distanced itself with a formal statement. Even the country club denied her access for a charity brunch. Her once loyal neighbor, Brian Chalmers, was overheard telling his wife, "She's radioactive. We can't be associated with her anymore." Inside the community, people whispered, as she passed. Joggers crossed the street to avoid her. A few parents pulled their kids out of her overpriced summer etiquette camp. And when Karen posted a tone-deaf video of herself sipping iced tea and insisting the Callahans were just stirring up drama, the comment section exploded. "You left a horse to die. That's not drama. That's disgusting. Your Porsche isn't worth a life. Step down before you get sued into the next county." Travis, meanwhile, stayed quiet. He let the world speak for him. And when he saw Karen frantically taking down lawn signs and removing her name from the neighborhood newsletter, he didn't gloat. He just went back to the barn and checked on Biscuit, who, though still weak, nickered softly and lifted his head for the first time in days. "You're stronger than she ever was," Travis whispered. 3 weeks after the incident, the sheriff's cruiser rolled into Karen's driveway with sirens off but intent clear. Deputy Martinez stepped out, walked up to the door, and knocked twice. Karen opened it in her tennis whites, jaw tight, eyes wide. "You can't be serious," she snapped, as Martinez handed her a manila envelope. "I am," he replied. "You've been served." Inside the envelope were 2 documents. A criminal citation for animal endangerment, based on the video evidence and Dr. Edgerton's statement, and a civil suit from the Callahans for trespassing and intentional obstruction of a working ranch gate. Karen's eyes darted left and right. "This is absurd. Political. They're making an example out of me." Martinez didn't flinch. "You made an example out of yourself." Later that afternoon, Travis received a call from the sheriff's office. "She's been formally cited. The judge is considering a hearing. You've got a strong case." "Thanks, Sheriff," Travis said. He hung up the phone and walked out to the porch. The sun was setting over the fields, casting golden light over the barn. Jolene joined him. "We did it?" "We did it." Caleb stepped outside with Biscuit on a halter, frail but walking. The little horse leaned into him as they walked toward the pasture. Karen's reign was over, and Glenwood Ridge had learned something the hard way. You don't mess with a farm family, not in Texas, not in a heat wave, and especially not when Biscuit's involved.